Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Ham Radio Dude. Thanks for checking out the channel. Recently, we've been talking about power splitters, and we talked about the West Mountain Radio power splitter, as well as one I got off of Amazon. And today we're going to talk about the MFJ model 1124. Now, unlike the other ones I've talked about, this one actually has not just power pole adapters, but it has binding post adapters as well. There's 4 power pole adapters and 2 binding post adapters. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in detail, and then take it apart to see what's inside.
Your source for amateur radio news, reviews, and tech overviews. This is Ham Radio Dude.
Jumping onto the MFJ website, we're going to see that this is advertised as the MFJ model 1124, and it's $79.95. Now, it does say 6 Anderson PL in the title, as well as 2 high BP or binding posts. But if we page down to the description, we're going to see that it's 6 outlets in total. Outlets 1 through 4 are power pole outlets. 5 and 6 are 35 amp high current binding posts. And then it says this includes 4 pairs of power pole, 8 35 amp contacts, and 5 fuses. The dimensions here we'll get into in just a moment, as well as the types of fuses that are accepted on here as well, when we get this on the workbench. If we click on product manuals, you're going to see that there's nothing really listed under product manuals, and there is a video, but it's a very generic video as far as their line of splitters go. And then if you click on reviews, there's no customer reviews. However, I jumped over to eham.net, and again, I want to remind you the price here is $79.95. So if we go over to eham.net and we take a look at the reviews, we'll see the model MFJ 1124 has an MSRP of $59.95. Now, eham.net does have a few reviews, and the overall rating is 3.2 stars out of 5, and that's 5 total reviews. What I am going to tell you is sometimes you have to be a little bit careful on eham because some of the reviews are very biased. I'm not talking about anything in this page in particular, but I have seen some pretty bad reviews. So if we page down, this one rating gets what doesn't even look like a star, and it says, great idea, but before you hook yours up, make sure you take it apart and resolder all the cold solder joints. Mine had 2 intermittent ports, and when I took it apart, I found 2 of the fuse holders had not been properly soldered to the board, and also cold solder on 2 sets of the power poles. So automatically we're starting to see that maybe there might be some solder joint issues, which we're going to dive into in just a moment. Another review here is a 2-star review, and he wanted a power distribution box. After hooking everything up, the first port was very erratic, and again, poor solder joints. So we already have 2 that are poor solder joints, and we have a 4-star review, and it looks like it's a pretty positive review. Giving this 4 stars because the product could have been delivered with much better quality control with very little extra attention. So if you want to read all these reviews in full, again, I'll leave the link below for eham.net. And then there's 2 more 5-star ratings, and one's actually comparing it to the West Mountain Radio stuff. And in this review, this individual is saying that he likes the idea of having the combination of binding post and power pole connectors, which is probably a pretty good idea. In fact, last week on my live stream, somebody had asked me if there was one with binding post and Anderson power pole adapters. So here you go. Let's go ahead right now and get this on the workbench, take a look at it, see if it works, and then take it apart. Now, this is the first time that I've had this on the bench, so I just wanted to make a couple of initial observations. I like actually filming the video when I haven't tested this product fully yet because it gives me that opportunity to learn along with everybody else, but also to be a little bit surprised if there's something wrong. I want to give some initial observations, and the first thing is the wire to go to your power source is very thick, and that's kind of nice. I do believe with the other devices that we've had, it was just a power pole adapter that was plugged in. So this one has an external cable for your power source, and these are your binding post adapters for the power source. Today we're going to plug it into a 30 amp power supply because that is what I have around here. Another observation I'm making is this ground post right here, and this ground post is something I haven't seen in either the West Mountain Radio or that Amazon one that I purchased and reviewed last week. From there we have a 40 amp fuse, and that 40 amp fuse is going to be in regards to the power source. If you put in more than 40 amps in the power source, it should pop this 40 amp fuse. And I'm going to show you something about the inside of this device here later, because there is a possibility that you could put in your fuse crooked and therefore maybe damage the device. And just keep that in mind. But we'll take a look at that when we get this apart. For now, I'm going to go ahead and plug this 40 amp fuse back in, and we're going to walk down the line here. Here's your 4 power pole adapters, and you have 25 amps, 10 amps, 5 amps, and 1 amp. And then we go to a 25 amp adapter, which appears to be for the binding post here, and a 10 amp adapter, which appears for the binding post here. Other than that, if I kind of just take a look around here, one of the things I notice is the way they bend the metal actually stretched, I guess you'd say, the black paint or the black film that they use on the metal. And that's just something to keep in mind. And of course, there's a signature here. I believe that says Tim. So Tim, I hope this is a good one. Anyway, let's go ahead and plug this into a power source and just test these out. Like I said, I won't test it fully at 30 amps, but we will go through and just make sure that each one's working as we can. And then we'll take it apart and take a look inside and see how it looks. I just observed something and I wanted to make one more note. You could see here where the power cables go in, and there's supposed to be like two flush little covers here, and they are kind of protruding out. You can't push them back in. I don't know that that's a huge deal, but I figured for the sake of the video, I would note it. And then let me just do an all-around overview here so you could actually see the whole thing. I figured that would be kind of nice for you to see. And notice I am holding this here with my pinky in hand so it doesn't pull out. Okay, let's test it out. Okay, I'm back, and the light bulb overhead burned out. So if it seems dimmer, it's not your eyes. It's definitely because I had to put a dimmer light bulb in overhead. But you're not really here for a light bulb story, and if you were, that would probably be one of the most boring YouTube channels that I was aware of. But here we are. I have this plugged into a 30 amp power supply. I did find this, and I'm going to make a couple notes. These are not authentic power pole adapters, so they don't fit in here as well or as snug as they should. That's no fault of the MFJ. It's more of a fault of me buying cheap knockoff power pole adapters. So with that, I'm just going to plug this in here, and I'm using a G90. So we have this little watt meter, and with nothing plugged in or powered on, there is a fan running, so it's using 0.15 amps. If I turn on the G90, we're going to go up to a whole whopping 0.717273 amps. But it does power on, and that's a good sign and a good indication. So what I'm going to do actually is, let me unplug this. So I'll turn off the G90 first. One thing I do also want to make a note of is there is no light indicators if you have a burnt fuse or anything along those, a blown out fuse, excuse me, or anything along those lines. Like you saw in that last one I did of the Amazon power splitter. So if something's not working, you probably always want to check the fuses. Another device I have is the Yaesu Ft Dx10, and it has fuses of 25 amps max. So I think I'm going to plug that into port 1 here. Again, red to red, black to black. And the radio powered on. Now, I think it's only using somewhere around 2 to 3 amps as it is right now, and that's fine. We're just going to leave it at that. But I just wanted to kind of have that on. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug this one into the 10 amp section. And again, watt meter here should be 0.15, okay, 0.12. Let's just test these binding posts out real quick. I think I'm going to have to grab the... Yeah, what I should do in the future is I should probably just make a power pole adapter to binding post adapter to make my life easier. But for now, let's go ahead and pull out the ICOM IC7300 to test the binding posts. Unfortunately, I've ran into an issue, and I don't know what I'm going to do quite yet. These binding posts don't unscrew all the way. And that's unfortunate because I have ring connectors on my ICOM power cord. Now, that is an issue because I don't feel like cutting them off and putting fork connectors on there just for this episode. I'm going to look around the house and see what I have. Additionally, when I go to take this apart, this might be kind of fun because I don't know exactly how I'm going to take off the top cover with these adapters on here. It'll be a little bit of a challenge, and maybe we'll work through that together. Okay, this won't be the best solution in the world again, but here we have two wires that are just screwed in here. And we have the MFJ Deluxe Noise Canceling Signal Enhancer, which actually works pretty cool. I made a quick 3-minute video on that before. Check it out. But anyway, if I hit the power button, it does power on. And the first one, let's check the second one. And here we are on the second one, 10 amps, and this thing isn't going to pull 10 amps anyway. So here we go, power on. Every port appears to work. Let me just hold it on for a second here just to make sure. It's good. Let's go ahead now and tear it apart and see how the board looks and see how the solder job looks. I also wanted to mention that this power cable is about 6 feet long, which is very convenient. And it works nice because I could actually run the power cable across the room and put this on the wall. And I got my Ham Radio Dude branded, not iFixit, but Ham Radio Dude branded screwdriver set. And, let's just go ahead and start tearing it apart. Now, there are multiple screws. There's 2 here, 2 here, 3 here, and there's none on the side. So this one might be a little bit interesting. I am going to go ahead now and slowly just kind of go through here. You could always pause the video and take a look at the solder joints independently if I'm going too fast for you. And I'll do my best to get this thing focused right there probably, right? I want you to let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this solder job? Now that we have an idea of what the solder job looks like, and I'm not going to make any comments for or against it, but I'm going to go ahead and take this board apart so we can see the other side of this board and kind of get an idea of how everything looks on that side as well. Actually, there are a couple things I do want to comment about. And the first thing is it looks like there might be a little bit of solder missing from here. Other than that, the solder job doesn't look like the greatest solder job in the world, and there is a lot of flux all over the place. I don't know if you could see it on the camera. Additionally, it looks like right here, there was some solder and it was scraped away or something along those lines, which I don't know if it's a huge deal, but I wanted to point those out. To get these 4 binding posts off, you need a 3/8 inch wrench. And additionally, when I started to take this apart, I took apart these 3 screws. These 3 screws need to be on to unscrew these 3 screws, and then this should just pop right out. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the other side. And everything does look okay. What I wanted to mention was with that Amazon power splitter that I bought, there was these little guards or these little rubber guards here, so you couldn't put the fuse down and then short anything. It doesn't look like there's anything to be shorted here, but it was a nice little feature to have. So with that, we have seen that if I wanted to, I could go ahead and I could take these off and I could replace these binding posts with ones that come off all the way. Again, I really don't like that. Just a couple more close-ups for you. Let's do a final recap, and I just want to make a couple of points. My first point is please take this into consideration. I do encourage you to check other reviews online. Watch other videos to determine whether or not you think this device is nice. See, I'm one person, and really my opinion is just as good as anybody else's, right? With that being said, I've already beat the dead horse, and he's on the ground, and I'm still beating him about these binding posts. It seems kind of silly that you would have these binding posts that don't get removed. At least to me it does. Especially when even MFJ is putting binding posts on, ring posts on here, right? So these are ring posts, and you would put this on your power supply, but these are not for ring posts, and I just don't like that. I really think they should be removed. So now that I beat it and it's dead, let's talk about the next thing. If you're looking for the possibility of having Anderson power adapters and you don't care about the binding posts, I would actually highly recommend the device I showed last week, which I'll link below as well. But that one had 8 outputs and 1 input, all power pole adapters. Now, they didn't use authentic power pole adapters in my video last week, and I can't confirm whether or not these are official. I would be willing to bet they are, especially because on the website it showed that these were trademarked power pole. However, if you open this up and you look inside, that wasn't the cleanest job in the world. I'm an amateur here. I'm an amateur in electronics and radio and everything. However, that wasn't the cleanest solder job in the world. There was flux everywhere. It looks like there was some solder scraped off in places. And I'm sure that's all fine. But then it looked like there was pockets of solder missing from 1 or 2 of the solder joints. There's a little concern there for me because maybe I got a really good unit. Maybe I got a bad unit. I don't know. However, when I look at the reviews and I see that 3 out of the 4 or 5 people complained about solder joints, I'm going to leave it up to you to decide. Again, I don't want to construe this as complaining by any means, because I'm very grateful I have the opportunity to test this, and I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. But I do want to give my thoughts. With that being said, too, though, I do enjoy learning. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel. If there's something you think I could do better, please let me know in the comments below. And we will test at a later date to make sure that this thing actually can handle 40 amps, which I don't think there would be a reason it can't. But until next time, I'm Ham Radio Dude 73.